Test, test, test. How does the audio work? Well, I guess I do have sounds in this. That seems fine. Hmm.
Strawberry milk because BDSM, people drinks strawberry milk. And so basically how you make it is you take strawberries and then you chop them up and then you mix them with sugar and let the juices of the like strawberry come out into the sugar and you mash them and then it turns into like a strawberry jam and then you put strawberry jam in the bottom of the container and then you pour milk over it and then it makes fresh strawberry milk. It makes fresh strawberry milk. Look at that. Look at how pretty. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. It's fresh, okay? It's fresh. It's homemade. That's why it looks like that. But I think it looks prettier this way. Okay. It's pretty. Dang it. It's not. It's strawberry milk. Fresh person? It's about to be fresh pebble. It's about to be fresh pebble milk. It's about to be. It's about to be. Dang it. Anyway, I must regain my composure. I'm getting a little heated cause you're making fun of my room.
Wait, did I?
Well, look,
What was this?
you're just jealous. You're just jealous that I have a whole castle to myself. Okay? You're just look at this view. It's so nice. You know, it you're just jealous. Yeah. We're gonna be hanging out here for a while. So, I mean, I live here. So like if you don't like it then sucks. Yeah, sucks to be you.
No, that makes sense to go from Spider-Man though. Why is this in here? Look at my Twitch chat. I guess I don't really care to look at it. Enemy. Do I need redirectors for all of this? What happened? Did they just like explode? So we'll find out. Yeah, how's this shit get neat? Damn, that was a big ass leak. Alright, did any of my stuff explode? Maybe? That seems fine to me. Yeah, I guess the problem of game though is like, what if it's just content? I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of content and there's just a lot of stuff after too. 2022. Yeah, this is very obviously an internal video. Confidential. Internal PC bill. How does one compile all these? Is there a problem if I can't see the difference between these two? I can't even like spot the difference. God, this is ridiculous. What? Oh my god, this is so much work for a room that you spend like a minute in.
Take 3, Mark.
Job well done. Not bad.
What is this stuff?
Strong, right?
Oof.
Everyone uses Google Slides. Jesus. It's even worse, actually. Was a freaking 10-year plan? Okay, 7. X-Men. That's an 10-year. Spider-Man 2. 600 million. Wait. $600 million. Oh, wait. Uh, why is their royalty higher? Oh, maybe because they do more. Oh yeah, I want to play Maple Story. It's 101 remaster. Did that come out? Oh yeah, it did. Huh. ROI of 48%. Break even. Is the break even million sales? Well, it seems like. I honestly couldn't tell you though. Yeah, Ratchet and Clank was minus 10%. Iron Man 2 was only 35. Wait, I don't. ROI's return on investment. Yeah, I don't understand this. Oh, because 260 is 123% of 156. But then 75 or sorry, whatever this amount here. What? This makes even less sense now. 156. Between net income and investment. This makes even less sense now. Alright, whatever. I'll get it. Ooh. Oh, more. Hmm. 80 employees at Blue Point, Jesus. Spider-Man 3-1. Did I like miss that or am I going insane? Ooh, Bungie publish. Yeah, it sure is bussin'. Fucking procrastinating reading gaming leaks instead of working on my game. This is kind of juicy though. Fucking wait, where was it? Dude, look at this. Fucking got like their 10-year plan leaked. I haven't played any of these games though, so I guess it doesn't matter to me. Actually, the more more interesting thing for me is like very early gameplay of the game. Yeah, I don't know how this happened. There's other like Sony studios. I think Wolverine seems cool. I mean, also Spider-Man 3. Yeah, I don't know about the sniffing mechanic, but where we're at. Oh fuck! I've been reading this Reddit thread for like 20 minutes now. Jesus. Yeah, it was Blue Point was who did the Dark Souls remaster, is also in this leak, who's also PlayStation Studios. This one's kind of funny. It's like, oh shit, Microsoft got Activision. How what do we do about this? So everyone just uses this PowerPoint format. I guess it's what works. All this ROI and stuff makes no sense to me. I'm just looking at numbers. Alright, back to my game. Gaming leaks and rumors. Thank you, thank you. But check in tomorrow. Alright, what the hell do I want to do today? Worked. Alright, I need to stop this fucking sunset. It's like way too long. What time does the sun start? Why does it start at like 3 p.m.? Can I like rotate this? Is that better? Okay, so now is it morning? Okay, good. Okay, now it's like 7 a.m. when the game starts. This seems nice. It's 20. Split that down to 1. Oh fuck! Can I make this light not cast shadows? Oh hell yeah! I guess this is a little annoying right now. Stuff's not that bright. Alright, Jesus, it's so annoying. Oh yeah, I want to put on something I can listen to.
two more bed nets, then those are two more people who are going to have access to them. But it is my feeling that it's still my emotion that is being triggered there.
Right. Well, there's the Nobel Prize winning economist Angus Deaton referred to the effective altruist movement as the idea that
Past guest Angus Deaton, by the way.
Past guest. Thank you. Great.
Yeah.
A colleague then.
Nobel Prize on the show before. And that means one for you in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So he referred to effective altruism as the idea that lives can be bought cheaply, like used cars. It's the idea that lives are bought. You're looking for the best deal. You're looking for lives that you can gain cost effectively.
Yeah.
That feels like a kind of icky, reductive way of looking at other human beings.
Yeah. It's like you're doing your charity, like Storage Wars. Like you're showing up going like, how much can I get for, those lives are going for like $10 each. I can save a bunch of lives over there.
Yes.
And that in fact is used as an argument for, hey, why would you spend your charity dollar in the US? It'll go much further if you spend it overseas. You'll save more lives.
Exactly.
Which is like, on the one hand, the first time you hear that, you're like, okay, yeah, maybe I am being, chauvinistic by saying, people in my city are better, more important. Maybe I should, all lives are equal, right?
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, after a while you start going, well, why wouldn't I try to improve the place I live?
Right.
That's where I live.
Right. It's where I live, and it's where I'm actually in relationship with other people.
Exactly.
In some really important way. So you have a bigger chance, a better shot at seeing people as full, complex human beings rather than just these kind of abstract objects that I refer to them in the book as like avatars of poverty. There's this like flattening and objectification of people that comes with giving philosophies that really see people as only their vulnerability, only their need, only their desperation, that you then, the hero donor, can save for just $1 a day with just one bed net. There's a real, you want to talk about chauvinism, but there's a real egotistical feedback loop that comes with that has a less chance of evolution than if you say, okay, I'm really giving in a way that keeps me in deep connected relationship with other people and builds some common world that I want to share with them.
And that's what the people sort of running this movement kind of lacked. They weren't actually in community with anybody other than themselves and the wealthy people that they hung out with. And that really led to some biases. Like I used to read the givewell.org recommendations every year and see how they would rank different things. And then one year I went, well, hold on a second. I'm really concerned about climate change. Have they done any work on climate change? And I dug into they publish all their papers. It's very academic and rigorous. And I went and looked at the climate change, and they had done, a couple pages on it. And they were like, well, we evaluated some things, but we couldn't really find proof. They want really rigorous evidence that your dollar is going to, create such and such good. And they're like, we couldn't really find a charity that would prove that.
Right.
And I'm going, well, what do you have to? Like, can't we have like that standard is really high. And then I started looking at the other things they were recommending, and they had started to go, a new area of focus for us is AI mitigation. We're really worried. And by the way, this was like 5 to 7 years ago. They were like, we're really worried that AI is going to take over the world. And if we invest money right now preventing AI from taking over the world, that's going to be the most valuable. And I was like, you're not working on climate change, but you are working on AI? Like what?
Yeah.
Why? And
well, there's two things happening there. And one is that climate change is really ill-suited to their framework. It's complex. It's multivalent. It's going to require lots of different kinds of intervention. It's going to require social movements. It's stuff that you can't easily quantify, and it's going to happen at a much slower pace than the kind of immediacy of like bednet equals life, The other thing that's going on there is that
character acceleration.
the appeal of the long-term future, because long-termism is the sort of new fad that you're referring to.
That became their new thing of, we need to think not just 5 years or 10 years into the future, but like 10,000 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the end state of thinking of humanity only in terms of volume. Like how the number of beings that we count as human beings who could maximally be alive, and not about quality of life, not about quality of our world, but really just the numbers. I refer in the book to their philosophy of existing human beings as depreciating assets, right? if you're a human being that's alive today, you have liabilities. You can't, immediately you can't quite maximize. We're not ideal figures. You can't maximize our utility. You can't maximize our labor. We might have sickness. We're going to age. Like, it's like you drive a car off the lot, to extend Angus Deaton's analogy. Like, the moment a human being is alive, it has liabilities. And so if they're looking for this perfect, optimized, idealized human civilization that really is about maximizing the number of human beings that are alive and productive at any given time, then you're going to look way into the future when it's just a computer model. You're not going to deal with the reality of human beings in the here and now, because it's too complex and it's too compromised in a way.
There's also a degree to which it's taking like a philosophical thought experiment and taking it literally. Like, it's all well and good to write, well, hey, if I could, if you could spend $1,000 and save one life today, or you could spend $1,000 and save 10,000 lives in the future because you are preventing AI mitigation, or you're mitigating an AI that could potentially kill billions of people in the future, and you're blah, 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 blah.
Right.
In a philosophical thought experiment, you could have a fun time deciding which is more important. But like, as someone who studied philosophy, I was always like, well, you don't actually do that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a thought experiment.
Right.
Like, the Chinese room isn't real.
Right.
The lever that makes the train go from one,
I hope I can say on this show that there's something masturbatory about all of it. There is something like
philosophy is inherently masturbatory.
I couldn't agree more.
And that's the great thing about it. I love masturbating.
Well, it's been great being on this show. I'm glad.
But I don't, but masturbating that's only one part of my life. I don't take that to the rest of my social life.
We don't
That's
have
not
to talk
something
about
that involves
pie charts, Adam. We don't have to look at the breakdown. It's okay.
Let's move off of this
This is
metaphor.
fucked,
But
man.
yeah, there's an oddness to
Always like
taking
this?
it,
Yes.
even taking utilitarianism, which again,
Yes.
I think is a philosophy with a lot to recommend it. I'm not like some Peter Singer hater,
Right.
but it is the kind of thing where when you actually take it really seriously,
Right.
you're like, well,
The big problem with effective altruism is its absolutism.
Mm.
The fact that there's really very little room for alternative ways of thinking. And to me, that's symptomatic of a bigger problem, which is that under our current kind of, can I use the term neoliberal here?
Of
Can we talk
course.
about neoliberalism? Fantastic. So under neoliberalism, which is the kind of philosophy that we really need to be competitive in the market as much as possible, that our whole lives need to be kind of oriented towards our performance in the economic market, it means that takes over our lives to the exclusion of all other ways of relating to ourselves and to other people. And effective altruism is this kind of consummate example of that taking over philanthropy, of saying, well, human beings are really just, the metric that we use to judge worth is whether we're alive and economically productive.
Mhm.
And that's the mode by which we decide where our charitable dollars go. And that excludes so many other dimensions of human life and things that make life worth living and actually make us human.
Well, how did effective altruism get involved with crypto and with Sam Bankman-Fried? Because this is the oddest part of the story, I think.
Right. Well, I'm not a journalist with expertise on the kind of chronology of that, but I can say that early effective altruism was popular among a kind of class of young bankers who signed on to this idea of earning
so
to
it's just
give.
hella low
Right.
poly,
This was part of
which
the
makes sense.
philosophy.
I don't know
was
how I
like,
got to this
instead of
point.
going to work for a nonprofit where there's going to be limits, constraints on how much good I can personally contribute, the idea is, if I go make a ton of money working in banking, working in a hedge fund, and I give it away to the most effective charities, then I'll be doing so much more good. I want to pause and just say, notice how much the I figures in to all of this. Notice how
Right.
much this is about the sovereign self, the sovereign control, I as the sort of actor in history.
And there's a missing parentheses in that little story, which is also in the second version. I'll be fucking rich.
Of course. Right.
I'll have a private jet and a penthouse.
At any time, I can just keep more of the money if
Yeah.
it works for me. Like, even if you start off saying, okay, I'm going to live a monkish existence and donate my 7-figure bonuses to effective altruist ranked charities, that's fine. But at any given time, you can still choose to pull back and say, you know what, I actually would like some of this money for myself. I feel like I've, accumulated enough virtue points in the world.
Yeah.
All
Versus
right.
actually working in
No.
service of other people.
Right.
If you were to, for instance, take a $70,000 a job as a social worker, which would be a great salary for a social worker, and actually work in service of others,
Right.
now your needs are less prioritized.
Your needs are less prioritized, and you just don't have as much control. You don't have you're working with other people as well and within systems. So there's this undercurrent of maximizing the amount of control that you, the donor, have, even if you are allegedly doing it all for humanity.
But so there's this whole cohort of bankers who are signed on to this philosophy.
Right. There's a story of in the book about a guy named Matt Wage, who was a student of Peter Singer's, and this is a early description of this philosophy. He says, imagine if you walked past a burning building and you could save all 100 people who were inside. Like, you had a way of like putting out the fire, or you could kick down the door and save 100 people. That would be the greatest day of your life. And you're like, the greatest day of your life.
Everybody else inside had a pretty shitty day.
Right.
Also, especially because there was one
guess
guy
the
trying to
blues of
save all of them
fucking
instead of
Right.
an entire firefighting system. And also their building burned down because of poor safety codes, and
Right.
Maybe the building inspector had been defunded the previous year because there had been some tax cuts across the city,
Right.
So that the heroic
A
guy
city
walking
that
around
now is
yeah.
like, the hedge fund you work for holds a bond against that debt, by the way, right? So yes,
Those people didn't have great days, but the hero who rescued everybody,
you had the best day, right?
Yeah.
So I think you can draw a line from that mentality to a Sam Bankman-Fried who says, like, here is a movement tailor-made for me, a guy who thinks he is the smartest and the
Right.
most effective, and really doesn't have to answer to anybody else. As we found out, he really didn't think he did. So there was there's a sort of
These
through
small
line of
ones are a
justification
little too small.
of accumulating wealth by any means, because you're going to put it to, as you put it, the right ends.
Yeah.
So that's how we end up with a Sam Bankman-Fried.
And he became completely entwined in the effective altruism movement. My understanding is a huge amount money started flooding into this movement. The New Yorker did a wonderful piece on this. They started buying buildings or whatever, and having all this space and yada yada yada. And a lot of that money was coming from Sam Bankman-Fried and other crypto people. And now that he is as we speak right now, about to go to prison for a very long time because he was convicted of one of the most massive financial frauds in American history, it's discredited the movement because the leading lights of this movement, the philosopher kings
Right.
who were writing the papers and spreading the good word, were like best buddies with him. One of the most unethical people in the history of the country. Why? Because he had the money.
Because he had the money. The entire board of the FTX Foundation resigned and wrote an open letter once the indictments came for Sam. And there were a number of responses that basically said, how could you, you guys have PhDs from Oxford. How could you have worked with this guy and had a foundation that was allegedly going to give out $100 million a year, right? And, buy into all of this hype without really checking the reality.
Yeah, they were going to give out $100 million a year to save lives and the future of humanity, yada, yada. But that was money that they got because
they just stole
They stole it from other people who were told,
but those
disappeared.
But you misunderstand. Those people were dumber. They were just dumber.
They were dumb enough to believe what we told them, which is that FTX and all that was a great investment.
Exactly. So clearly they would not have been better. They were not worthy stewards of this money the way we, the people stealing it from them, would have been.
So one of the things I find most fascinating about this is that it's a really rare example of a philosophical idea or a philosophical movement, starting with Peter Singer and the utilitarians, that is now discredited. I have to think that there's been some backlash, in the philosophical academy about this because of its association with the real world. It's rare for a philosophical idea to interact with the real world so badly that it becomes discredited. That seems to have happened here, at least to me.
It has,
Oh,
and it's
that feels so
happened
low now.
quickly.
Holy
right?
shit.
It's happened in this
What
very
happened?
compressed time frame where you have this like rise of trend of effective altruism, like you say, New Yorker profiles, major public figures coming into view.
Why is my FPS
It's,
like?
not typical to have a like giving philosophy becoming such a
Huh?
zeitgeisty thing. And then you have this scandal that happened so quickly and so dramatically. And I think what it proved is the flaws that were baked into the philosophical model, like immediately proved true. Like the moment it started to interact with, like, I don't think in a way it's surprising that this happened, because this is just the inevitable product of a philosophy that says we can do the most good in the world without actually really caring about other people and our obligations to them.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, again, utilitarianism is not something I throw out by itself, but the knock against it is always that it leads to sort of perverse outcomes if you actually follow through on it.
Right.
And holy shit, it happened immediately.
Right. Who could have predicted? Everyone. Yes, right. It do be like that.
It do be like that. I honestly, I'd love to have Peter Singer on this show because I still think he's a fascinating thinker.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to hear how he interacts with some of what happened since. But you know what? Let's take a really quick break because I want to talk to you when we get back about other streams of philanthropic thought and mistakes that have been made and how we can actually maybe help each other in a more productive way. But we'll be right back with more Amy Schiller. Hey folks, because I'm such a big believer in internet privacy and security, it won't surprise you to learn that I use a virtual private network. That kind of security is just too important to overlook in the age of online personal data. Many of you might use a VPN already, but others might have heard of VPNs but not known where to start. Well, to change where your connection is coming, this is simply the data taken down. But guess what? There's hundreds of them. You can't possibly do that all by yourself. There's no way you can keep up with it. That is why you need Delete Me. See, Delete Me's teams of experts scans the internet to find where your data is on these data broker sites. They give you a detailed report of their findings, and they submit the opt-outs for you and get all that information taken down. I have used this service for years. It is an absolutely invaluable part of keeping me and my loved ones safe online. I've signed up for memberships for all of my family members just because I don't want anybody hunting down, any of my loved ones to harass. That % off for all consumer plans with the code ADAM. That's joined a incredible selection of titles across apps that she's access to 500. Once again, that's audible.com/billionaires can save the world by donating all of their money. And people can go watch that video if they want to sort of see, the full version of that debunking and my thoughts on it. But I want to ask you about a specific example of it that's often presented as being a positive, because I know you covered in the book. Mackenzie Scott, who is Jeff Bezos's
ex-wife.
I was going to say widow. He's not dead. We can hope. His ex-wife, she received billions in the divorce, right? And she has been giving the money away like crazy. And people will often say in the comments of my videos, Mackenzie Scott. Now, she's a great example. She's a good example of this because she's just trying to get rid of this shit. I'm curious what your take is on her.
Well, it's very like, you're right, you're also right. A very kind of Fiddler on the Roof approach where it's like, you're right. She is doing it better than any billionaire, right? She's giving her money away in really admirable, transformative ways.
And what makes it better than how they give it away?
Okay, so the problem is like I go
gives
left,
it away
right?
unrestricted.
Okay.
That's the number one thing. And I'll get back to that in a second. But
I'm trying to go
thing
left,
is that
right?
she
And it
is
just, like, tilts
doing
it.
her philanthropy, I think,
makes me
better
kind of
than
upset.
others. But because of that, you
Um,
can see the limits of philanthropy's actual power to create social change. So I'll explain why. So Mackenzie Scott gives away tens of millions of dollars in tranches. And she works with a team of consultants, and they do a lot of vetting behind the scenes. And so unlike many situations where nonprofits have to write grant reports and massage all their language to fit a funder's, we're really interested in this particular thing, or can you make this about dogs somehow? There's like so much
I want a building with my name on it. Can I have a nice building?
There's so much catering to the idiosyncratic preferences of funders, and it takes up a ton of time. And then you have to do reporting that shows like, oh, we spent the money on exactly the thing that we said we were going to spend it on, to, I think, very burdensome degrees, right? There's certainly a case to be made that you should do some of that, but this is very burdensome. Many nonprofits complain about this. So Mackenzie Scott, instead, what she does is she just makes up her list with her team. Her team then calls the recipients and says, you've just been allocated, some millions of dollars from Mackenzie Scott, unrestricted, very little reporting. Like, you just got this giant windfall, and you don't have to jump through all the hoops that you normally have to jump through to get funding. This is super transformative, because what this does is displaces the stature and the power of Mackenzie as the donor, and really says this is about just getting money to people, and to go back to our theme of trust, trusting these institutions to use it in the way that they see fit. So there's a lot of giving away, not just of money, but of oversight and discretion, which is really a form of power. I think that's super admirable. And I think that many people should be taking her example and not putting nonprofits through all of these paces to try and get all this money.
And this is similar to when we were talking at the beginning of giving someone, hey, here's money. You know what to do best with it. I'm not worried that you're going to spend it on the wrong thing, like alcohol. It's very similar to donating to an individual person. It gives them that trust, and it deprioritizes you, the giver. That's good.
Exactly. I think that's the best thing. Where I think you see the limits is Mackenzie Scott has made many public statements where she talks about her concerns about social and economic justice, racial injustice, that she wants this money to go not to elite institutions, but to HBCUs, for example, or she wants it to go to local social service organizations, things that are not priorities for the billionaire class. These are really gifts that she's making to organizations that serve poor, working, and otherwise disenfranchised people in the United States. That's also great and unusual. The only problem is that for all of the money that she has and all the money that she's shoveling out the door, the metaphor I use in the book is Lucy and Ethel at the chocolate factory, where it's like they can't wrap the chocolate fast enough to get it out the door. Like she desperately wants to. Unfortunately, her holdings of Amazon stock mean that she's just going to keep accumulating money even faster than she can give it away.
Wow.
So that's one problem.
Interesting. So she hasn't divested from the Amazon stock. She still has, the money is growing, what, because Amazon's stock price
this is
to rise?
As far as I know. Like, I can't say I know the contents of her portfolio, but if we assume that it's from Amazon stock, then yes, her her wealth is just growing at a faster rate than she could give it away, even at this revolutionary pace.
But she could give it, I mean, it's possible to divest, but she's sort of still using an endowment sort of model where she has a big pot, and then the proceeds from the investment is what is being given away.
So her metaphor is she wants to give until the safe is empty.
Yeah.
Now the problem with a safe is that there's like a static amount of money in there. It's not like, oh, it gets refilled and then you have to like continuously empty it. But there's a different strain of issue here, which is that she could of course officially divest herself of her stock, or she could put $1 billion into the Amazon worker strike fund. She could use this money not in these kind of downstream palliative ways where she gives it to nonprofits that are trying to kind of make up for the deprivations that people face in a deeply unequal society. She could do something much more radical and confrontational with the amount of money that she has that would actually change labor relations, that would actually change policy, that might actually do something to prevent these conditions of inequality that so concern her. So this model of charitable giving as a mode of social justice, it kind of comes too late in the process. You would have to intervene upstream in our political system in a more confrontational way. So I think as philanthropy, it's great. But as social justice, I think it's very limited.
So, okay, that's really interesting because she's giving away the money in a way that deprioritizes her. But it sounds like what you're saying is the choices that she's making, her priorities of who gets the money, it's still her team figuring it out.
Yes.
She still has some biases or some things she maybe doesn't quite understand.
Maybe just I would say some limitations, right? Like I would love to see her go farther. I would love to see her become a champion of workers' rights.
Yeah.
That would be much more revolutionary, much more radical, and it wouldn't just be redistributing money, it would be genuinely redistributing power.
So let's talk about what kind of donation that would be. I mean, if one were to, actually donate money to a place that would actually do these things, what sort of
What is it
organizations are we
doing,
talking
man?
about?
So if we're talking about nonprofits, there are some excellent advocacy nonprofits. There's, Americans for Financial Reform. There's Demand Progress. There's the Revolving Door Project. There are a number of nonprofits that really seek to weaken the power of corporations in government. And again, I have to echo, donating money to union strike funds would be an incredibly ballsy and revolutionary move. That would really be about giving workers the power to negotiate for their own conditions. Frankly, you could probably just give money to union networks more broadly. They all have, operating foundations as well. So there's some confrontational giving that is right on the line between charitable giving, 501c3, and a form of like political giving. You might even give it to a 501c4 that more actively does lobbying. So that's one way to do it, where you would actually be giving to places that are challenging our policies and our norms and our dynamics of labor and race and power, and not just from a kind of marginal position, but really confrontationally in the halls of power.
But there's still a problem there, because I imagine, I take your point very well. And, as a member of two unions, one of which SAG-AFTRA did not have the strike fund set up as year round as the Writers Guild does, and needed a lot of donations very quickly for that strike fund. If, they were to suddenly have, hey, we're on strike, well, guess what? Here's $500 million or whatever from Mackenzie Scott. That would have changed the strike enormously. It would have meant that actors could have, and by the way, we're talking today, the day after the strike was resolved.
Yes, and congratulations
ended.
on that.
Thank you very much.
I know you're very active on that board.
Yeah, well, I'm active in the Writers Guild. I'm
right.
just a SAG-AFTRA member.
Okay.
But I'm an active member, but I don't serve in any leadership role. But if there was a strike fund that was 10 times what it had been, the membership would have been in a very different place. Maybe could have held out even longer if necessary. I mean, hopefully not, but would have changed the facts on the ground. It would have given the workers a lot more power. So I take that point, but I do wonder if she did have those priorities. If she said, Mackenzie Scott divorces Jeff Bezos.
What did I do?
And she, reads a bunch of Jane McAlevey books and, the Communist Manifesto, and realizes that worker power is the most important thing, and she wants to donate to those structural places, right? I could see someone making the argument, well, now she's following her other set of ideological commitments and biases, which are, still a fact about her, right? And maybe there's something even more efficient she could have done. Like, isn't part of the problem that one person is calling the shots at all? Wouldn't it be better just to like take the money away and let us vote on it? You know what I mean? Or something like that.
Of course, yes, expropriating wealth for public use is a huge part of this. I think I'm thinking about what is in the short to medium horizon of possible.
Yeah, of course.
So I totally take your point and agree with you. And there's stuff in the book about how we change tax incentives and how we change our political economy for a number of reasons, but one being so that philanthropy is not this highly stratified activity that's only done by the mega rich, but that we have greater equality and democratization of wealth, such that we have democratization of giving as well. So I completely agree with you.
That's really interesting. Democratization of giving. So expand on that, please.
So democratization of wealth really means a more equitable distribution of wealth. And democratization of giving would then mean more people had the discretionary income that they could participate, even in small ways, in giving. So one of the concepts that I put forth in the book is the idea of going beyond a living wage to a giving wage. So we have this idea of a living wage that would pay people. So apparently we need a special term to say workers are actually supposed to be able to live on what they earn. This is like already a paradigm change that we shouldn't need to have, but we're working on it. I suggest that we need to go even further
did I do to
and
this?
say people should be paid a giving wage. They should be paid enough that they can also afford, even nominally, to give back. So we're recording this a couple weeks before Giving Tuesday, for example, like this day after Thanksgiving, which is one of the largest days of giving in the year, right before giving season starts. 30% of all gifts are made in December. So my sense is, if we, giving is really one expression of the health of our democracy. And so I would want to see people paid more and with more robust social welfare policies that enable us all the security and the freedom to give to things that actually enable human flourishing in our communities.
Yeah, if we had a more equitable economy overall, then
Right.
more people would be able to donate, and we wouldn't have the equity problems that we do with philanthropy, because it would be overall more democratic. And actually, the labor movement is maybe a good example of this, because folks who have union jobs generally, on average, earn more than folks who do not. And part of, a small percentage, I forget what my total dues are, a percent or so of my salary goes to the union, which is a not-for-profit that works for the benefit of me and others in my industry and community. It's not quite a charity, but it's sort of an example of this, where the labor movement is this durable nonprofit power center for workers' rights and for equality and, generally, green things and all the good things that we like, right? And it is funded by the fact that the workers each chipping in a little bit, which they're able to do because they're all paid more.
Exactly.
What is it doing, man?
To expand,
okay, thank you.
Yes, the unions are a crucial example of this. And then there are parts of our lives that really secure our quality of life. They might be our parks, they might be cultural institutions, they might be houses of worship, they might be recreation centers. Like, if we think about those as power centers as well, places that really affirm human worth beyond our economic productivity, places that really cultivate human community and connection, that is a form of building power. That is a form of affirming human value and human worth beyond our economic productivity.
Yeah. Is it? I got to say, though, you mentioned churches, right? And churches are probably the most common form of community-based philanthropy.
Yep.
Many Americans are members of churches. Many churches have an ideology of you should chip in a bit. In some religions, some denominations, that's tithing, right? Where people donate a lot of their income. And I have to say, not all those churches are institutions that spend money in ways that benefit society.
Holy crap,
that
took so long.
In ways that benefit only the people who go to the church, that protect wealth, that, there are some very regressive churches out there. And so I'm wondering if our desire to have a version of philanthropy that is going to be good in every respect is a problem. I mean, I said a second ago, right?
Yeah.
What if we just take the money away and we all vote on what to do with it, right? And that's very easy for me to say. Fuck the billionaires, take the money away, let's all vote, let's have it be democratic. Unfortunately, we do currently have a system where we do that to some extent. It's called taxes. And I think if any single person in the country were to look at what taxes are spent on, every single person in the country would say, I fucking hate a lot of this, right? And that's because democracy is a fucking mess, and people do not agree, and there's a lot of assholes in every society, and there's power imbalances in society, and there's hierarchies, and there's, corporations are able to say, oh, hold on, there's a lot of money being given out. Why don't we get some for ourselves? We're powerful enough that, we can, military industrial complex and all that shit, right? And like it sort of seems like in order to find that path to a positive philanthropy, we need to solve every power-based problem in society, which seems like a tall order.
When you put it that way.
I'm very sorry. Do you have an answer to this question in your book?
It's called How to Fix Philanthropy, How to Fix Everything. But I guess to me, I see having this diversified set of tactics of how we can use money for social good kind of offsets some of the challenges that you just listed. So there's a story in the book that points out exactly what you said, that like even our democratically elected governments are not always going to have the interests of human flourishing at heart, right? They might be hostile. And so, as much as the leftist in me is concerned that what I'm saying is, libertarian or otherwise mistrustful of government, I do think there's something to be said for pluralism. So the story is that in the late 90s, Rudy Giuliani, the then mayor of New York, wanted to sell off about 140 plots of land that were allocated for community gardens. And he wanted to sell them to developers. And his argument was somehow like, we need this land, we need it for housing. These gardens are just, these elite spaces that are just kind of draining public resources. And really what he meant was, this is not economically productive. This is not right. So,
and these sort of spaces, by the way, are one of the things that make New York City a wonderful city. That this is a city where we're recording in New York right now. You walk around like, oh, there's a tiny little park. It's just like the size of one little building.
Right.
At some point, they knocked down a building and built a little park there. And it's one of the beautiful things.
Not only did they knock down a building, but it was actually largely Black and Latinx communities that took over vacant lots in the 1970s and turned them into these gardens.
Yes.
So there actually are legacies of people of color and grassroots reclaiming of public space and building their communities. So what the short version of what saved these spaces is a fundraising campaign spearheaded by Bette Midler that for $2.4 million bought these plots and then donated them to a land trust, donated them to New York City Land Trust.
Wow.
So there's this way in which philanthropy can
what the
be
hell is this
this
a child of?
lever
You actor
using
component.
money
What do they
for like humanism, even in the undesirable moments when our governments do not have that in their core interests.
So you actually feel that philanthropy is not by itself bad. It's the way we've been going about it. It's the over prioritization, and that there is a version of philanthropy that would be productive. Like there is a thing that Warren Buffett could do that would be net positive.
So the best story I can give you to exemplify this, it's the last part of the book, and it's a profile of LeBron James. So LeBron has a network of institutions that his foundation has helped start in Akron, Ohio. And the first of them is the I Promise School. And I want to just say really importantly off the top, the I Promise School is a public school. It has a collective bargaining agreement for the teachers. It is not a charter school. That might be the most revolutionary thing about it. So let's be clear. This is philanthropy in partnership with public goods, with like democratically funded public goods, public institutions, public schools. So there's the I Promise School that has public governance, but the LeBron James Family Foundation and its partners fund this huge suite of wraparound services. They have food pickup for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the families. There's a barber shop for the parents of the kids, and every kid gets a bike and a helmet.
Wow.
Why? Because when LeBron was asked about the bikes, he said, when I was a kid, having a bike was what made me feel free. That to me is like, how do you use money to value the unquantifiable, the human spirit, the intangible? There's no balance sheet that can quantify feeling free. And that's what the philanthropy that he gives can provide alongside the very critical basic services.
And is there something that, because you say that and it makes me think, well, that made LeBron feel free. Maybe something else would make some other kid feel free.
Absolutely.
Maybe a fucking, I felt free when I had a Super Nintendo. You know what I mean? And so is there something about this that makes us avoid that pitfall of LeBron deciding for everybody else what they should have?
No, I'm not avoiding that pitfall. I'm not going to pretend that we are. It's true. He does decide, but it's a very embedded decision. It's embedded in his upbringing, in his relationships, and his knowledge, because he's from there. He actually, at the opening of I Promise, he said, I know what the kids who go to the school are going through. I know the dreams they have. I know the nightmares they have. So like very deeply empathetic and like connected about that. So it's not just, I woke up and I had this quixotic idea that we should just give kids bikes. Like, no, I do know because I was this kid.
Yeah, he didn't do the... Let's contrast with what Mark Zuckerberg did with the Newark schools, I think.
Yes.
Which I think is a bad story. Do you remember the details?
Very well. I just talked about it. And so he wanted to kind of parachute into Newark with $100 million and revolutionize their school system, only to create redistricting maps that didn't take into account whether kids would need to cross highways to get to school. This is one small example.
Right, because he's not from there. LeBron wouldn't make that mistake. LeBron's like, no way, no kids crossing that. Like, blah, 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 blah. These people go to this school. Like, I know how the community works.
Exactly.
As opposed to parachuting in.
Exactly. I know how the community works, and I'm going to partner with the institutions that are
so
governed
confused
by,
why I can't
like
parent
public
from
officials and
Right.
Public funding. So there's also not that
Probably
kind of takeover of like,
like
now I'm going to become the Mr. Potter of Akron, who just like controls everything.
Yep,
There's a real
there you go.
interconnectedness to how he does it, and that to me is what I would like philanthropy to do, is to exist in equilibrium and in partnership, but with a very unique understanding of its role. That like we absolutely need government for, I say in the book, we need government for bread and philanthropy for roses. So,
Expand on that, please.
absolutely. Now, of course, this is much too neat of a divide. There's lots of places
Yeah,
where
there's no
this,
reason to have much shit.
can blend together in ways you have to work out. But bread and roses is, as you might know, the union slogan of, we don't just need sustenance, we need quality of life. We need things that bring us joy. We need culture. We need music. We need things that connect us to our souls. And so, again, my sense is like, we absolutely need a government that does a much better job than our current government does of providing for our basic needs. But we also need roses. And I don't know that we can necessarily assume that our government will have the means or the priorities that allow for that. And philanthropy has the flexibility to do that if it does so in proper deference to the authorities of our government.
And so let's talk about that deference.
Yeah.
Deference to the authorities of our government, meaning in the case of
Please don't blow up,
Akron,
please don't blow up,
the
please don't blow up.
democratically elected school board,
Right.
probably the parent associations, PTAs, whatever, all the various community organs that know what is needed there.
Right. All the things that make it very ineffective altruism, right? Like all of these kinds of there are relationships of friction and negotiation and solidarity and disjuncture that have to be contested. They have to be like democratically contested. That's what it means to be in relationship. But you're doing so with a sense that like you are ultimately there to help provide the things that keep people human, the things that bring them joy, the things that really connect them to one another. And so there's a humility to that and a clear sense of purpose.
Yes. And especially when you are in deference to the organizations within the government that are specifically democratic,
Right.
that are coming from the bottom up. I mean, when I was saying, hey, a lot of the stuff in the budget of the federal government I don't like, a lot of that is driven by the parts that are not democratic. That's driven by corporations having too much power and the people not having enough power. And if we instead are working in deference to the parts of the government that are democratic, where the people do have a voice, then we're on the right path, maybe.
I think we are.
So for this Giving Tuesday,
Yes.
if people, I around this time of year, I do think about how fortunate I am to be
Right.
doing a podcast and YouTube
I
videos and to
know.
have a little bit of disposable income. And I want to make sure that I am sharing it with others and making the world a better place in ways that matter to me. What do you suggest that people think about where they start with their own philanthropic activities to make sure they're not falling into these? Because again, I spent 5 years
Right.
following the effective altruists, and I don't mind that my money went to bed nets, but now I'm like, I could have done a little better.
There's a balance to strike between giving for the world we have and giving for the world we want to build, right? So I would never say like just give to these sort of evergreen pursuits of culture and recreation and parks, because that might feel tone deaf based on the serious local, national, international crises that we find ourselves in. So I don't want to be absolutist about this, but I would say, if anything, strive for a balance between being responsive to the world that we have and responsive to genuine vulnerability and genuine crisis that is readily accessible to all of us if we look around, but also consider what can you give and where can you give that keeps you in relationship with others, that allows you and others to gather, to explore, to flourish, to grow and connect. What institutions can you give that might be locally, they might be nationally, but what can you do that kind of fosters human flourishing with your giving?
Do you have an example or even one from your own life of something, like
It's
that
so
sort of
weird to
local
me
thing that folks can
there's
be in
spaces in
partnership with?
these.
Absolutely. So, again, in New York, I support my community garden. That's a
Mhm.
small thing. I also support museums ranging from ones that are, the name brands that might be like the Met or the Brooklyn Museum. And I especially give to those that are freely accessible to others, that like really allow for free admission, because that feels the most sort of democratic and inclusive way of like sharing that quality of life with others. I have been on the board of something called the Chautauqua Institution, the Young People's Board. That's a place I grew up going that really fostered these values in me. I come from Cleveland, not far from Akron, so shout out to Northeast Ohio. And so I would give to local social service organizations there and also to museums there. And I should say, like, not just ones that are, again, those name brands, but maybe smaller ones. They might be local things that work with the schools. They might be, a dance troupe that meets at your local community center that people really value, or a recreation center. Again, stuff that brings people together in a way that I think is missing so much of the time.
And in terms of building, worker power or power for average people, like
Yes.
that we were talking about, wouldn't it be great if Mackenzie Scott donated to organizations like that? What sort of organizations are you thinking of, and how do people go about finding them?
Well, first of all, I would say definitely look and see if there are workers on strike and just give to those strike funds. Like,
Right.
That's definitely a great place to start.
The strike funds that the union asks you to donate to, very important.
That's a great point.
That you need to, if you want to support a strike, you have to look at how is the union asking you to support, because sometimes there'll be other funds around the edges that are not really, you
I do.
defer to the union. Right?
Yeah, I agree completely. And so the nonprofits that I mentioned before that I think are really smart about translating advocacy on behalf of the workers and the sort of populace of the United States are really great. That would be Demand Progress. That would be Americans for Financial Reform. They're really good at translating demands of the people into real policy. So those would be my other recommendations there.
I'll tell you my own part for my donations this year is I've given to the Emergency Workers Organizing Collective. I forget which is a group that anybody around the country can call and get connected with an organizer if you're trying to unionize. EWalk, really great organization that comes out of a union effort. And I am looking for a trans legal defense charity, because that's, I think, a very important legal issue right now. And those are folks who are like really doing the very basic on the ground, like legal and political work to get some of the folks who need power built in our society, most the power that they need. But I'm like looking to, as you say, find a place that I can have a relationship with, where it's not just like, oh, hey, I'm, take the money and run or whatever.
Right.
But like, where are the places that are working most closely in their own community, not just doing the parachuting in like top down work, but, actually providing legal aid to folks who need it,
I do. And I totally second that recommendation. And I think that will sort of require listeners to look in their own communities.
Yes, exactly.
And kind of just use your sort of embedded networks and your embedded knowledge about, where do you feel things are really making a difference and helping people flourish in the place where you live.
That's so wonderful. Amy, the book is called The Price of Humanity. You can pick up a copy at our special bookshop, factuallypod.com/books. Where else can people, it's out December 5th.
It's out December 5th.
Where else can people find it? Where else can they follow your work?
You can find the book is at Bookshop. The book is also in your local independent bookstore. The book is anywhere you can buy books. You can find me on social media at Amy the Shill. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. And you can also find me at my website, amybestschiller.com. And I really look forward to hearing from listeners what your thoughts are.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been wonderful.
Such a pleasure. Thanks, Adam.
Jesus
Well, thank
Christ,
you
this
once
is
again to Amy
complicated.
Schiller for coming on the show. Once again, if you want to pick up a copy of her book, you can do so at factuallypod.com/books. If you want to support this show, please head to patreon.com/Adam Conover. Just $5 a month gets you every episode of this show ad-free. For $15 a month, I will read your name at the end of the credits and put it at the end of every one of my video monologues. This week, I want to thank Ahmet A., Richard McVeigh, God King Engineer of Beaver Kind, Sectoban, Emily Wilson, and Lee Dotson. Thank you so much for your support. Head to patreon.com/Adam Conover if you want to join them. I want to thank my producers, Sam Roudman and Tony Wilson, everybody here at HeadGum for helping make this show possible. Once again, you can find my tickets and tour dates at adamconover.net, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Factually.
That was a HeadGum podcast.
You got mail.
Hello, I'm Elise Morales.
And I'm Millie Tamares.
And we are the hosts of the new podcast, Go Touch Grass, premiering on HeadGum December 13th.
The phrase "go touch grass" is what you say to someone who's so online they need to shut down their computer or phone and go outside.
And on
Alright, I need to go to sleep. It's been an hour 20. Anyway, this is not the default. I wish I could make it the default. You can't. Alright, I just want to play some sound just for the fun of it.
Huge W.
I like lupus.
Huge W.
Alright, well. Oh, why are inputs like this? So the Oh shit, that's not good. Let's change it from trigger to let's start it. Alright. Alright. Blah, blah, blah. I need to like split up this. Can I do that for here? No. Yeah, I don't really have time for this. I guess I'll just freaking.
And creation begin to drag out 0. A box trigger these input and add input. Exactly active. So let's change this to 0. Drag this one out and just type in audio, and we want play sound at location.
Right. Okay, I'm just dumb. Why does it do that? Interesting. Oh, I know what's up. Oh, frick, man. Oh, this is so filthy. End charge attack. Wait, end charge attack, end heavy attack, start heavy attack. Dark heavy attack triggered. Do once. I guess I can just put it in there then. Okay.
Welcome to my head.
Wait, this is the wrong one. It's also the wrong one.
Huge W.
What a dumbass game I made.
Huge W.
Oh god. This is an insane amount of work. I don't get how people do this. Pretty sure I get. Oh, that's like. Okay, whatever. I'll just install this. As far as I don't have it. Why did Google move this crap over here? I'll never know. Except, sure. Is that it? You need to first remove it from your repository. Okay. Well, alright. It's not in my repository. Okay. Oh, no, 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 no. Can I do individual files? Oh, fuck. Everything's a US. Oh, my God. I feel like this is gonna explode everything. Did I? Okay. Alrighty. I'm gonna regret this. Why does it have to do this? It's because everything's US. I'm gonna move. It should not have it. Oh, fuck. Okay, all of us attempt to they don't get of those objects. There's all these bodies. Good attributes. Hmm? You asset, filter LFS, div LFS, merge LFS, dash text. How do I push it? Alright, this stream's over. Oh. forgot what all these things do. Oh yeah, I did actually put it up that thing. Uploading LFS objects. We did not do that stuff. Uh-huh. Already stuff. Alright, it's gonna take a bit. Say the least. Actually, why did they push all the starter content? Good. Cool. It's not even done yet. This thing's a gig? Alright, this is not good right now. Why did it want it? I'm a little confused now. Content. Actually, like even more confused now. Content character. Was this stuff even tracked before? Oh, it was. Okay, so I just did everything over again. Holy shit, it's not even close to being done. Okay. Whatever, I'm done.